So, okay, so, well, we'll stop. Okay, just wanted to thank everybody for attending today, the first in our speaker series for sustainability. And we have joining us today, Matt Reitmeier and Linda Velazquez from Parking and Transportation. We also have Don which is the vice chair of the Professional Staff Senate. My name is Janice Jankowski. I am the co-chair of the Sustainability Committee, and we have a couple of committee members assisting us today, Todd Nibby and Jim Gordon. Jim Gordon came out of retirement and he's willing to help us out today. So take it away, Matt and Linda.
All right, I will start. Hello, I'm Linda Velazquez, Marketing and Program Manager for Parking and Transportation Services. And I'm happy to be starting off today's presentation talking about one of UB's newest achievements and to promote sustainability and the greening of the campus. And that is, there we go, the addition of 30 new electric vehicle charging ports or plugs. 15 dual port charge point stations were installed earlier this year in January. 7 stations are located in the Parker lot on the South Campus near Townsend Hall. 14 electric vehicles can park and charge there at the same time. 8 stations were added to the Jacobs B lot on the North Campus, and that will allow 16 electric vehicles to charge at the same time. These stations are in addition to the 3 stations that were part of a pilot project launched in 2012. And they are located and will remain at Coventry Loop, Mary Talbert Way, and in Diefendorf Loop on the South Campus. The addition of the new stations marks a 500% increase in the number of ports or plugs for electric vehicles here. Now, this is how we grew from the pilot project. The university has made a commitment to climate action with the goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2030. And our friends in sustainability have presented and published and done much work on the climate action plan. And you may have tuned into their Earth Day presentation yesterday. So I won't go into the specifics of that, but an electric vehicle infrastructure is certainly a main piece of that plan. Together, we solicited feedback from the UB community and an electric vehicle or EV owners forum. This confirmed our suspicion that there was a need for more stations. The feedback also gave us structure as we moved into the planning stage. We began working with campus partners in facilities and business services, campus planning and sustainability to plan locations and policy. The original plans called for a more widespread placement of stations, including the Ketter lot on North Campus and the Sherman and Allen lots on South. But installation costs went above what we could secure from our funders. These locations are still on the table as a phase 2 of future installations. Next, we secured funding. 2 sources covered the bulk of the project costs. A national grid incentive paid for the electric runs from the power box to the EV stations, which is usually the most costly part of the project. This is what ultimately led us to scale the project back to the 2 locations we have now in phase 1. A charge-ready New York rebate from NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, was secured to pay for the equipment, which included the charging stations themselves, the bases, and their installation. The charge-ready rebate offers $4,000 per port or plug. The stations installed here are dual ports, so we received $8,000 per station. So what's next? UB Business Services conducted a cost analysis for maintaining the stations, and a price point of around $1.50 was calculated. That cost is working its way through the final approval process, and once everything is signed off on, there will be a charge to use the stations. Right now, there's no charge to charge. You just need a charge point account, which is pretty standard for EV vehicles. So if you have an EV vehicle right now, go ahead and take advantage of this. There is a campus committee working on greening the campus fleet and adding the infrastructure to support it. Of course, along with that comes a search for more funding opportunities to expand EV infrastructure across the campuses. And one proposal that appears promising is for fast chargers to be installed in the main Bailey lot along Main Street at no cost to UB. Now we have a quick poll. If we can get the poll up, we'd like to ask if any of you will consider an electric vehicle for your next purchase. So while you're taking the poll, I just wanted to alert you to a Sustainable Living Committee presentation by Mike Mosier, president of EV Charge Solutions, on May 21st. Mike will cover a variety of information about electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging, including availability of electric car models between now and 2030, what range should you be looking for, the federal and state tax credits or incentives that are available, plus information on public charging stations, the possible conversion of gas stations to fast charging stations, and what to consider for charging at your home. And again, Mike's presentation will be on May 21st. So I don't know if we have poll results. Does anybody have that? Yes, that's excellent. Okay. All right, we're going to move on. I'm turning things over to Matt Reitmeier.
Thank you, Linda. My name is Matt Reitmeier. I work with UV Parking and Transportation Services. I've been with the university for nearly 12 years now. My areas of focus are typically technology on both the parking and transportation side of the house with our parking software, as well as some pieces of technology that integrate with our transportation fleet. So I would like to segue into the transportation side of our sustainable operation and talk a little bit about on-demand transportation. The on-demand transportation is a recent trend in the mobility industry designed to become more efficient with resources by reducing the amount of time spent traveling where not needed. We use the Transloc on-demand app, and it is compatible with Apple and Android devices and available for download via iTunes and Google Play Store. Parking and Transportation Services is currently using Transloc on demand for passengers to request rides from all over the North Campus to travel to their desired destinations. And we have a second poll for you. And it's to ask, have you ever used a ride-hailing app in your personal or professional life? Examples of which would include Uber and Lyft.
No. I'm just letting me.
So it looks like almost everyone has participated, 10 out of 11 responses, and 90% of people have. So the reason we ask is that Transloc works almost exactly the same way. It's GPS enabled, request a pickup from a certain location, a drop off at a certain location, and our buses and shuttles will come and fetch you and bring you to your destination. So we began using the on-demand app in October of 2019 for the safety shuttle service operated by First Transit. The safety shuttle takes students, faculty, and staff from points on South Campus like Clement, Goodyear, Diefendorf, Main Circle, and the pharmacy building, and will transport them to a destination 1.5 miles from the campus, including surrounding neighborhoods, but only residences and not stores or establishments like restaurants. The safety shuttle currently operates Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. to 1 a.m., transporting approximately 35 passengers each evening. For frame of reference, when we began the program and before the pandemic, we were transporting roughly 110 passengers each service day. After seeing such great use of the app on the safety shuttle, we expanded our on-demand service offering to the North Campus shuttle. When there were so few people on campus due to the pandemic, the app was a great way to reduce the amount of fuel consumed and miles traveled while getting university members directly to their destinations. The North Campus shuttle is the most utilized on-demand service, transporting approximately 65 passengers per day. The service currently operates Monday through Sunday with exclusively on-demand service on Saturdays and Sundays. And basically what that means is that if there's no ride being requested, the shuttle doesn't travel, it doesn't burn extra fuel, it doesn't put miles on the vehicle, cutting down on emissions. PNT piloted the on-demand app for the apartment mall market service last fall with great response from students. We have now expanded the service to Wednesday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., exclusively on demand, and the service is very popular with students. We transport roughly 50 passengers per day, with Thursdays and Fridays being the busiest days of travel. Riders can request a ride from the North Campus locations and travel to Walmart, Wegmans, Boulevard Mall, Tops, and Target. We're going to take a look inside the app and demonstrate what the process actually kind of looks like. So these images demonstrate the screens that users see when they're booking the service. The first image depicts different services that can be booked. So you're seeing the option for North Campus Shuttle right now. Other options outside of the pandemic would include Blue Line, South Campus On Demand, Green Line, and the Safety Shuttle. The image in the middle shows the drop-down boxes for selecting predetermined locations for that particular service. So for services like North Campus Shuttle, our scheduled service has a list of stops. All of those same stops appear in the drop-down boxes that you would see inside of the app. The image on the right is displaying the push notifications that are sent to your device when you're the next pickup. The app provides an estimated time the shuttle will arrive, followed by an estimated time of arrival at your destination. Very, very similar to Uber and Lyft. I would like to transition to another sustainable mode of transportation and something more seasonably appropriate, bicycling. Parking and Transportation Services is proud to host several bicycling events throughout the course of the year that celebrate and support bicycling at UB. P&T hosts 2 Greener Commute Day events each year in May and September. The event was created to celebrate folks that walk, take public transit, ride their bike, and carpool to campuses, basically using any method of transportation that is not driving alone in a vehicle to campus by themselves. Incentives like recognition, prizes, giveaways, and food are all great motivators to get folks to try out different methods of sustainable transportation. The May event syncs with National Bike to Work Day and typically lands on the same day as our first commencement, meaning there's less student participation than we would like, as some of them are graduating and finishing their final exams. As a result of this timing, we decided to host an internal to UB Greener Commute Day event in September that would be more inclusive and host more student participation. This year's May event will be May 14, 2021, similar to years past with a modified experience to meet current safety and health guidelines. Last year's event was modified as most university members were already greening their commute by working remotely. At that time, we encouraged folks to get outside and walk, run, or bike during the day. September's event is in the planning stages with more information to come. Let's all stay hopeful for some great potential for in-person events in fall 2021. And don't forget to take photos safely and use our hashtags to connect with us using social media. Bike days are another event that has seen great success over the years with the university community. We have a poll up if you've ever participated in Greener Commute Day or bike days. A little further about bike days, since 2015, Parking and Transportation Services has partnered with Campus Living and University Police to host bike days each semester. At this event, bikes are registered with the university and tuned up for free. The goal is to keep bikes healthy and prevent them from being left on campus when students move on. Before bike days, the university impounded approximately 80 to 100 bikes that deteriorated and were left behind each summer. Since bike days, and more recently, we are now only collecting about 35 bikes each summer. A tune-up at bike days includes pumping air in tires, oiling chains, fixing spokes, gears, brakes, and all sorts of other mechanical issues. I'd like to take this opportunity to give special recognition to Lieutenant Scott Bixby from University Police and Dave Booty from Campus Living for their hard work and dedication over the past several years. Their continued effort and expert level mechanic and their mechanic ability to fix bikes to save people hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars over the years. It's well received by the university community. So most folks ask what the advantages are to registering their bike with the university. And the answer is clear. When registered, we provide you with a sticker that identifies the bike as yours. If your bike is ever lost or stolen and then recovered by law enforcement at UB or in your community, we can aid in getting your bike back to you. Without your bike being registered, it's far less likely that you'll be able to recover the bike. Registration also puts you in a network of registered bicyclists that receive advance notice of tune-up events, winter storage, group rides, and other offerings from the university. For those folks who are unable to attend the bike day events, we have Darrow Fix-It stations on campus to support you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. These stations are located at Main Circle on the South Campus, Flint Loop, Wrench Loop, Student Union, and the Fargo Griner area of Ellicott Complex on North Campus. Each station is outfitted with basic tools for maintenance and an air pump so you can continue your ride. The Darrow Fix-It station is represented by the picture in the top right corner here. Lastly, our free winter storage for the university community helps keep bikes healthy, meaning less bikes left behind that are marked as abandoned, impounded, and eventually donated to Go Bike Buffalo. To stay with the topic of bicycling, but transitioning to our bike share option on campus, we're happy to report that our bike share program will return to campus in fall 2021. Service was paused due to health and safety concerns during the pandemic. We are pleased with the operator's formal plan to sanitize and disinfect bikes routinely upon return to campus. As an overview, the university will host a 50 bicycle program with bikes on North and South Campus. Some statistics from the program are illustrated on the graphs that you see in the slide. Each year, we see approximately 500 new signups and an average of 9,700 trips traveling an average of 13,000 miles each year. It's interesting to note that while the stats for 2019-2020 look great, we didn't even have the second half of the bike share season due to the pandemic, which is encouraging to see the continued rise of this mode of transportation on campus. As a small plug for the program, there is a $10 annual membership fee and $2 an hour fee to ride the bikes. Our analysis of rides on campus show that most rides last about 15 to 20 minutes, equaling about 50 cents per ride. A link to sign up for the bike share program and begin using the bikes this summer will soon appear on our website through Parking and Transportation. With that, I'd like to pass it over to Linda.
Okay, thank you, Matt. So we have a car share on campus. It was launched in 2010 with the addition of Zipcars, and the program has grown to thousands of active Zipcar members in that 11-year span. We are currently contracted for 14 Zipcars, although that number has been adjusted for the reduced campus capacity this past year. Zipcar spaces are located in the Townsend lot on South Campus, in the Furnace lot, Ellicott Complex, and Hadley Village on the North Campus. And what makes Zipcar an attractive option for students and their parents is that they have access to wheels without the hassle of maintenance and paying for gas and insurance. And that's all covered in their membership and their hourly fee for reservations. If you have a department that doesn't have a state vehicle or a fleet for going to off-campus meetings or errands, a departmental account for Zipcar can be set up with the P card. You just need to go to the parking website. Our website is buffalo.edu/parking. Find Zipcar under Getting Around UB. Click on View Rates and Register for Zipcar. And you will see the departmental link under the faculty, alumni, or staff heading. And again, the departmental account can be set up on your P card, and Zipcar will contact your department to do that setup. Zipcar provides utilization reports, and these help guide decisions on the number of vehicles needed on campus. We've always been told the 40% is a good target number. So if you can read the first chart, you'll see that even with the reduced campus capacity, we've been averaging about a healthy 60% utilization this past year. Winter break is reflected in the December and January numbers, which are the low bars in the first chart. And average for miles driven each month is about 12,000 since September, or a total of 147,264 miles for over the past 7 months. This academic year, there were about 200 reserving Zipcar members each month. And again, as with bike share, we hope that next year or this coming fall will be much better for Zipcar membership and numbers. And finally, we want to call out the sustainable impact of having Zipcar on campus. In an independent research study conducted by the University of California, Berkeley in 2016, it it was found that each zip car removes 13 personal vehicles from a university community. By zip car estimates, UB can be proud of our sustainable transportation efforts, which have led to the removal of 182 personally owned vehicles from campus. In addition, each Zipcar member can be associated with the personal reduction of 1,600 pounds of CO2 emissions annually into the environment. And that means in the 2018-19 academic year, UB Zipcar members helped reduce 4 million pounds of CO2 from entering the air supply. We got more good news to come from Matt. Toss it back to him.
Thanks, Linda. So some exciting news on the bus and shuttle front, and more specifically, electric buses and shuttles. We have 28 biodiesel powered UB Stampede buses and 15 regular petrol fuel shuttles that currently comprise the UB transportation fleet. UB Stampede operates in upwards of 50,000 service hours per year, using approximately 150,000 gallons of fuel annually. Replacing these 43 vehicles with battery electric or hybrid transit buses is a tremendous opportunity. It is one that comes at a great financial expense. Latest pricing is about $850,000 per electric bus versus a $350,000 to $400,000 fee for replacing vehicles similar to existing diesel fleet. We have hosted 4 different electric bus manufacturers, including New Flyer, BYD, Proterra, and Gillig over the past 18 months in preparation for a new 10 or 12-year RFP for operation of the UB Stampede. Researching grant and funding opportunities, including whether we are eligible for the program that Governor Cuomo just announced earlier this week, the $85 million New York Clean Transportation Prizes Initiative, is something that is keeping us relatively busy. Transition from diesel to electric is a complicated process, as not only does it involve acquiring additional capital for this technology, but also thinking through new maintenance procedures and training, citing charging infrastructure, and working through the logistics of a fleet that will have a range of 154 to 232 miles. The range can be impacted by a number of factors, for example, heating and air conditioning, regenerative braking, and travel on different terrain, uphill or downhill. Again, this is a great opportunity, but some risk from the funding side, as well as the operations end. We look forward to continuing the work through this exciting process. I'd like to transition to another form of electric mobility, one that is termed micro-mobility. Micro-mobility is defined as transportation using lightweight vehicles, such as bicycles or scooters, especially electric ones that may be borrowed as part of a self-service rental program in which people rent vehicles for short-term use within a town, city, or institution. Electric bikes and scooters and the term micromobility are a relatively recent industry development that municipalities and campuses are now reacting to, ourselves included. In April 2020, New York State legalized use of electric bicycles for travel on roadways. In August 2020, legalized use of electric scooters. Legislation writes that each jurisdiction has the ability to decide if they'd like to allow e-bike or e-scooter sharing options within their boundaries. There's a current campus dialogue to assess if electric mobility options are a proper fit for our university. A recent meeting was also held with the town supervisor of Amherst and the planning team to discuss scooter sharing fit and also some infrastructure and facility concerns in the town of Amherst and around the University of Buffalo North campus. There are many pros and cons of electric bikes and scooters that have been observed, written about, and reported in the past couple of years. Some of the pros of electric mobility are added mobility options for university members on campus and last mile connections to the destination. There is a sustainable method of transportation and a fast emerging mobility trend in the world. Programs are also fully customizable, including institution branding, use of technology to use geofences to control speed in areas of travel. And for example, areas of high-speed travel like the John James Audubon, you can prevent scooters from traveling on. And also you can reduce the speed in certain zones. So using these scooters, you can reduce the speed to 3 miles or even 5 miles an hour in high traffic areas like the student union. The cons of these programs are relatively obvious. Safety of our university community is the biggest concern regarding collisions with pedestrians and vehicles, as well as the use of helmets on vehicles that are capable of traveling up to 18 miles per hour. There are infrastructure concerns centered around proper roadway design, speed limits, and signage required to support these options. And lastly, and the most visible con, would be clutter. We've all likely seen how clutter of bike share and scooter share have been represented in the media, and it is certainly an issue in some places. While vendors insist that there are methods of control, the clutter issue persists and work needs to be done to mitigate these concerns. That concludes our presentation. We hope you enjoyed learning about our sustainable methods of transportation as well as some mobility options that we're exploring for the future. At this time, I'd like to open the floor for questions, or if anyone would like to share an experience with riding an electric bus or using an e-bike or e-scooter while visiting another city or institution, please feel free. Also, if there's any questions for the chat feature, I'm happy to entertain them now.
I'm answering one now that it was about what if you get into an accident with a zip car?
Yeah.
And the answer is that there is a deductible for repairs, and zip car members are offered an opportunity to purchase a waiver. But if they are found to be at fault, they may have their membership suspended.
I also asked about and Jim answered that, the life of an electric bus. So Matt, you said it was a long-term contract that we're exploring, like 20 years. So.
No, the contract would be 10 to 12 years. And
Okay.
the life of an electric bus, basically the drivetrain, the shell of the bus,
Yeah.
it's about that time. Vendors will tell you 10 to 12 years. However, the life of the battery is about 6 to 8, usually warranted for 6 years.
So would the vendor would replace the bus or the battery, right? If say they didn't last the term of the contract?
Correct. Yeah, in a warranty situation, the manufacturer would provide a new battery to replace a faulty, but much like your cell phone or another battery operated device,
Yeah.
continual charging, you're not going to get back up to 100% every time you charge it. So the batteries hold less and less charge as time goes on, and they just need to be replaced after so much time.
Okay.
So, hey, Matt, what's the typical mileage of a bus on campus? I know that the buses get 150 to 200 miles per charge, but what is a typical bus route? How many miles is a typical bus route that they have to do during a shift?
That's a great question, Don. So our all stops route between the campus is about 13 miles, traveling from Ellicott Complex, stopping at all the stops and then going to Main Circle on the South Campus, about 13 miles there. And then of course there's the yellow line that travels back and forth, which is a little less than that because it doesn't go all the way to the Ellicott Complex. So doing the math, you probably get, a little more than 10 laps or so. And of course, when you're trying to do the math and figure out the mileage, you have to take some certain things into consideration. Are you heating the bus? Are you cooling the bus? Is there terrain that we have to deal with, which the answer is, in our cases, is not really. And then, when you're speaking with manufacturers, one of the things that they're most proud of and they want to tell you is that there's a certain element to driver training. So drivers will learn how to use the bus and the regenerative braking to kind of increase the battery life within a charge. So, you don't have to drive right to the stoplight and slam on the brakes, or not slam on the brakes, but brake. You can, coast and let the regenerative braking give you more battery life. And then, it takes about 2 or 3 weeks to kind of, understand and use the bus to its full advantage. But it's something that is trending in drivers that use electric buses.
Thank you.
So Matt, I have a question. As Metro Rail comes online, with your long-term contract, is it going to be set up in such a way that at some point, if we don't need the Stampede buses, we don't have to keep paying for them?
That's a great question. Obviously, there's a lot of factors that are going to go into this next contract. Some really big picture stuff like the Metro Rail inclusion and stuff. So to speak directly to your question and answer, I couldn't give you a definitive answer, but I know that, you know, at the large levels that these conversations are being had with the type of financial commitment that is involved, it is part of the conversation.
Karen had just a statement in the chat as far as with scooter use. Some of the sidewalks need to, you know, there's gaps or problems with the sidewalks, so there's maintenance of services to be considered for scooters, she mentioned. You know, so it's a consistent service and people aren't hitting, you know, bumps and falling.
So a point of clarification there is that bikes and scooters are technically considered vehicles and are not meant to be operated on sidewalks.
Okay.
It's like a gray area of sorts where, you know, police are not really going to be too hard about folks that are riding their bicycles on sidewalks because, you know, it's a personal level of safety. If you're not feeling comfortable enough to ride in the road, then you can ride in the sidewalk. But bicycles and scooters are not meant to be operated on sidewalks. And I think in areas where scooter sharing programs have been authorized and students and faculty and staff have begun using them, they are encouraged to be in the roadway and not on sidewalks because of their ability to travel up to 18 miles per hour, could lead to some serious collision concerns.
So Matt, you could ride your bike to campus and then dismount your bike and walk it on the sidewalk in the future if there was an explosion of usage on campus. Could you not?
Right. Yeah, of course you can walk your bike on the sidewalk. Absolutely.
With the campus, and this wasn't covered today, but just curious, with the campus returning to, you know, quite a bit of full capacity in the fall, how will we sanitize the buses? Is that what discussion is happening with that right now?
It's a great question. We have an excellent program out there right now for sanitizing all of our transportation options. We have a team that fogs the buses every morning, meaning they use an electrostatic fogging machine, and it kind of mists a cleaning solution, bacteria killing solution, and then it's allowed to settle, and then it's wiped off surfaces. We also wipe down the touch points at the beginning and end of every shift, and then every time there's a shift change. Our friends at First Transit are doing something very similar. They're fogging the vehicles every evening and also wiping down touch points several times during the day.
Let's see. Anything else in the chat, guys?
I don't see anything in the chat. I have one more question, Matt. The research I have seen indicates that there is not a risk of spreading it on public transit or any kind of transit that's greater than any other risk. Do you have any data about that?
Data regarding the spread of the coronavirus on public transit? Is that the question?
Yes, that's the question.
No, I don't have anything further other than what's published out there from the state or federal government and even the CDC.
Kind of out of the left field, but do you think that the reduced usage of the transit is due to fear or just reduced campus population? And
definitely reduced campus population.
That's great. So people aren't afraid. That's good.
Yeah, no, definitely not afraid. And I think there's certainly dependency on our transportation program, and we see that because it's the numbers are very, very similar each and every day for each and every service. It's almost like the same people are using every single day, rain, shine, snow, anything like that. We get a pretty consistent level of ridership.
Thank you.
While you're talking about that, the libraries struggle with people keeping their masks on and social distancing. do you have rules in the bus as far as you must have your mask on, or do you just hope that people will behave themselves?
We certainly do. We have signage in the bus shelters and on the areas where loading for buses and shuttles are that mask required. We haven't employed our folks to be the mask police, but we do encourage them to recommend passengers wear a mask just for the safety of themselves, our drivers, and the community. And we've seen really good, not participation.
Compliance.
Yes. We've seen really great compliance from the folks that ride our transportation options. And really, I can't speak to any one, interaction that was negative regarding mask wearing.
Wow.
We've also, for the interior of the buses and shuttles, we blocked off the seats so that we had 50% capacity. So if you've been in any of the buses and shuttles, the seats are covered. They have a flag. Matt, what is it? It's like
It's the seat covering. It looks like a
it's a
pennant.
seat covering, and it says "Do not sit here," and it's UV branded. We also installed barriers between the driver and the passengers, so that the drivers have been protected, and because they're in the bus long-term, longer than the passengers. So we've taken a number of safety precautions, and as Matt explained, the cleaning, but we also have the signage that says a mask is required, and that's on each of the doors at entry. And also campus branded advertising on the inside from University Communications talks about the safety features of all the distancing and the mask wearing. And so that's all within inside the buses.
Hey, Matt and Linda, Olga Crombie would like to know how many electric buses does UB plan to purchase? I know you're not purchasing them, but how many are in the RFP?
It's a great question, and it's really not an easy answer. So you'll be happy to hear that. So like I mentioned, we have 28 35-foot, nearly full-size mass transit style buses. And what we're looking at is, the composure of the fleet and how we can mix it, if you will, with smaller cutaway buses like our internal UV shuttles and those larger style buses to get the most out of the money. Meaning that, we're going to purchase, or we're likely going to purchase, or we're investigating the purchase of electric buses, which we demonstrated is an increased cost. So maybe to offset some of that cost, we mix in some smaller electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles that will cost a little bit less money, but we can use to our advantage. So, thinking about like late night services when we're not transporting a full busload of people, we can look to use cutaway buses that have a 25 seat capacity and use less resources to operate than a full-size bus. So don't have a full and definite answer for you because the RFP hasn't been drafted yet. But just to give you kind of an idea of what we're thinking about as far as the composure of the fleet for the next contract.
Mm-hmm. You may have said this and I missed it, but is there a plan to install a fast charge location for the buses?
That's a great question. Are you talking about a plug-in fast charge or one of the overhead fast charging units?
Overhead.
The overhead is a significant expense, and our latest visit with the bus manufacturer, Gillig, they estimated the cost is like $350,000 or $400,000 for one of those fast charging overhead units, which obviously is a significant expense. It would kind of hurt our ability to kind of get as much out of the fleet as we wanted if we were going to incur that additional expense. And they also they also gave the impression that it's not really the way that things are happening out there in the world where electric buses are present. The cost is just it's not unbearable, but it's almost unnecessary. You can do better with different infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
It's cool. It looks great, but it's just, it's not the most cost effective.
Will you have to add more buses in the fall 2021 in order to keep the 50% capacity?
It's a great question. I think that we are all secretly hoping that
Will go away.
the capacity opens up a little bit and we kind of, maybe we move from 50 to 75. Because at the, as we all realize, at the outset of the pandemic with 50%, we had to put more buses out there.
Right.
To transport less people, which isn't ideal from a budget standpoint or a consumption standpoint. So hoping that things open up a little bit. Obviously, we look to keep everyone safe and healthy, and we don't want to crowd buses, certainly. But it would be, or from a sustainability standpoint, if we can use less buses to transport more people.
So Matt and Linda, have you guys had any conversation with university facilities on a potential policy to allow people who are buying more and more expensive bikes and scooters to be able to, if there's space in their basically their office, to be able to bring that bicycle into their office as opposed to leaving it parked out front of a building that they're far away from?
Formally, no. It's always been my understanding that it's just a campus policy not to allow bicycles and any kind of vehicle into offices or dormitories because it's a life and health and safety concern, which makes sense. Do people do it? Of course they do. I think we're all well aware of folks that will walk their bike into their office or store their foldable bike in their dorm room. So, we know it's out there, but we certainly would encourage it. And, I would be open to the conversation with university facilities to discuss how that can happen, or if environmental health and safety is the right group.
I never knew that.
Hey, maybe just a comment on that. Maybe an alternative would be like a subscription. Like if you say you live in Griner Hall and you could put a camera on the bike area. Maybe you could have like a subscription kind of a deal through an app where anybody who's parking their bike there could subscribe to that camera so that if they wanted to, they could check on their bike from time to time.
It's an interesting concept, Don. It's like a bike babysitter.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Just so you can, kind of take a quick look every once
Like
in a
your
while.
pets.
Like the entrepreneur.
Oh, dear.
I don't see any more questions coming in.
I learned a lot. Thanks.
Yes, so if you want to stop the recording there, Janice, we will end the recording and we
Okay.
would say thank you so very much to Matt and to Linda for leading us off on our first sustainable presentation of the 5 event season here, and super interesting, and hopefully more people consider taking some of the kinds of transportation that you guys are talking about.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Pleasure
Thanks,
to be with you
everybody.
today.
Thanks for everybody for coming.
Thank you.
Take care.